In this module, we will be creating the basis for our animation state machine in the player character's blueprint. The animations that we'll be implementing in the player character include idle, walk, jump, shoot, hit, and finally, death. These animations will be implemented in two different ways. The first one we're going to call conditional animations. These animations run on a system that checks for a loop per tick of certain input or otherwise conditions that affect the player to create a state. So a condition results in an animation state. The first condition is when there is no input being given by the player, and so the character is not moving, nothing else is happening to it, and that results in the idle animation. The next condition is when there is input being given left or right with the controller stick on the player, and that results in a walk animation. The next condition is after there's been a jump input given from the controller and the player character is in midair. So as long as the character is in midair, that would be our condition, and that results in our jump state animation. And when there is a trigger input given by the player, and the trigger is held down because we want to create a shooting animation, and there we see a shoot state. We want a shooting animation to actually loop like a machine gun, so as long as the trigger input is held down, that should give us a looping shooting state. Now the next group we're going to call our event animations. They're sort of one-offs. They happen when a specific event happens and then they sort of stop. We don't really need them anymore. So an event leads to our state. The first one of these is when the player character takes damage. The damage is registered and that results in a hit reaction animation. And the final event would be when the health of the character reaches 0. This would presumably be after the damage taken event has happened and the health has finally reached 0. That would result in our death state, our death animation. Next, we're going to begin setting up our animation state machine with the help of an enumeration that we'll use in the player character blueprint. So we'll navigate to our content browser, and under the blueprint folder here, we're going to look for the blueprint class enumeration and create this here. We'll give this the name anim state. And we'll open this up and we'll add our animation names as entries. And 4 of them will be looping, so we'll make 4 different enumerators. And let's see. We'll name the first one, we'll go with idle. Second, we'll use walk. Third is jump. And last, shoot, when we want to have our looping shoot animation, a la a machine gun. So we'll open up the player character blueprint next. And this is the update animation that we looked at before. To clarify, we're going to have a look again at this event tick event that happens in the player character blueprint. We can see that update animation is called on every tick. That's going to be running the loop we talked about for our conditional events because we're changing our animation states during this update animation every tick. And here's where we set our animation last time. If you remember, I just open this up a little bit. The update animation event here, check to see if the velocity's vector length was greater than 0. If that was true, it meant it was moving and it put in the anim walk animation. If it was false, it put in the anim idle animation. Well, we're going to do a somewhat more robust system for this. So we're going to base this off of our enum. So we're going to make a variable here. Make this a little wider. And make an enum. In fact, we'll call it anim state It should find it that way. There we go. We'll name it anim state because why not? That's more memorable. So we're going to drag this out here. And we're going to do a switch system that plugs in the right flipbook when we want it. So we'll grab our sprite here. We'll set the flipbook. And we're just going to copy this because we want 4 of these here. So I'm just copy C, copy Ving these. And we're connecting the sprite to all of them. That's our sprite component, and that's for walk. This is for jump. This is for shooting. So we don't have all these animations made yet, but we're setting up sort of a framework to be filled in with the new flipbooks we'll be creating in the future. So for here, we'll do anim idle. And for walk, here's walk. We'll have anim walk, and then we'll go back and fix these later. Okay, so we're going to need to get rid of a few things here. We don't need this anymore, but this is still useful to us. So we're going to do a branch check here. This is still important. There's going to be a series of logic steps that take place here. Okay, this set flipbook we don't need. So we'll take this node and this variable, and we'll go ahead and delete this. We're going to do a few logic steps here. So if the character is moving, it's true. So we're going to set up some additional Booleans to check to see if any other conditions are true. But we want to line these up, these logic statements, with our animation states so they all make sense. So this sets the enum to idle. And we'll create, let me see, these will be some Booleans to check for as well. We'll check to see if the character is currently jumping. That would be when it's in midair. And we'll drag this out. And we'll do a branch check here. See if that's true or false. So if the character is moving, okay, let's add another enum check here to set this up here. So if the character is jumping, we set the anim state to jump, and if the character is not jumping but moving, we're going to assume that's walking. So we set the anim state to walk there. So if the character is not moving, we'll do another branch check, because if nothing else is happening, if the character is not moving, it will be idle. But if it's shooting, we want a shooting animation to play, so we want to check for that as well. So let's see, we'll copy the anim. Now I'll do the anim set this way. So we'll set the anim state here. So I'll set these enums to set off of true or false. If shooting is true, if shooting is false. So if shooting is true, it's shoot obviously, and false is already set to idle. So if shooting's false, anim state is idle. That gives us our 4 animation states. We're going to connect these to our switch, and our switch is the thing that's actually going to set our flipbook. So we'll connect these to a reroute node for a little bit of organizational neatness. And the reroute node we can connect to our switch. Now with all the nodes connected in our update animation event, that pretty much takes care of everything we need for our basic state machine.